Good evening. Good evening. We're going to call this Planning and Zoning Board meeting to order. We'll start with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Ms. Davis, if you don't mind.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. Velasquez, if you would call the roll for us, please.
Ardell Hamilton.
Present.
Willie Jackson.
Present.
Ryan Colton.
Present.
Julius William. Marie Davis.
Present.
Renee James. Michelle Brooks. Edward Kennedy.
Present.
Frederick McCoy.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you, Mr. Velasquez. Additions or deletions?
Good afternoon, Jeff Gagnon, Planning and Zoning Administrator. I would first like to ask the board, being that we have multiple absences of members tonight, that both alternates receive voting rights.
Hearing no objections, so that's adopted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Additionally, there was a revised packet that was sent out today. I apologize for the timing on that. However, based off of comments that we received this morning, there were revisions to the ordinance, which is the only item on our agenda tonight. Within the packet, it is all printed in color. So the previous version, additions were shown with an underlined format as blue. Deletions were shown in red with a strike-through format. And the new additions as part of version 2 are shown with a yellow highlight. And we do have copies available of the information in back. If anybody else needs a copy, we can print more off. That is it for additions and deletions.
Thank you, Jeff. Any individuals from the public wishing to comment on new business or public comments, please take the opportunity now to fill out a comment card, which is located at the entranceway of the vestibule. Any disclosure by members? Any members with disclosure? Hearing none, is there a motion for adoption of the agenda?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Moved by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mrs. Davis. Any objections? Hearing none, show that agenda adopted. Approval of the minutes from October 23rd, 2014. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt the minutes
Move.
with necessary corrections if there be any.
Any corrections? Hearing no corrections at this time, is
Pink card.
excuse me one second. Mr. Ward, you're acknowledged, and excuse me for not recognizing. This was the first time I ever heard a comment card on the approval of the minutes, so you're recognized, and you do have 3 minutes.
I don't think I need to take 3 minutes, but I would suggest you again review. We have made great progress in every area of the just 2135 Broadway, Gerald M. Ward, just for the record. We have made great progress with the city and with the CRA in getting comprehensive minutes, but this group has regressed from where they were in last century in terms of minutes. Look how many items do not have a detailed description of what the subject was. We have a discussion. We have varieties of ask or whatever stated. And you need to be very careful because the issues of tonight are something that are going to get the city into more lawsuits, and it is important that the minutes be detailed enough to substantiate what the presenter said, whether it be the board member or whether it be the staff or whether it be the public.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. I apologize. I first heard a motion by Mr. Hamilton. Was there a second to adopt the agenda? I'm sorry, to adopt the minutes.
Can I just ask staff a question regarding the minutes?
You recognize, Mr. Kennedy.
You still are furnishing the verbatim tapes for the minutes. Is that correct?
We keep a recording of every meeting that's posted on YouTube as well, so it's publicly accessible. I believe that if there were to be a lawsuit, whoever is bringing that lawsuit is responsible for providing verbatim minutes if need be.
No other questions? I'll second the motion.
I think it was already seconded by Mrs. Jackson. Am I
I'm
correct?
sorry.
So the motion was moved by Mr. Hamilton and seconded by Mrs. Jackson. Any other comments related to the minutes? Hearing none, staff, if you would call the roll for the approval of the minutes.
Ardell Hamilton,
Yes.
Kimberly Jackson,
Yes.
Brian Colton,
Yes.
Ari Davis,
Yes.
Edward Kennedy,
Yes.
Frederick McCoy,
Yes.
Animals voting, minutes approved.
No unfinished business, new business, Mr. Gagnon.
Yes, tonight under new business we have one item, letter A. For the record, it's ordinance amending Chapter 31, zoning, Article 5, district regulations, Division 9, RM20 high-density multifamily zoning district, and Division 10, RMH20 high-density multifamily hotel district, and Division 25, RH resort hotel district, of the city's code of ordinances by amending property development standards associated with ocean setbacks, coastal construction, and development density in order to promote increasingly sustainable development designs on Singer Island, providing for conflict servability, codification, and providing an effective date. What I'd first like to do is just discuss the supplemental information that was passed out. Most were maps and other images. And again, there were copies available in the back. If anyone needs additional copies, you can make more. First, I'd just like to describe the coastal construction control line map. The purpose of this illustration is to show both the 79 coastal construction control line, which is indicated with a purple line. To the west is the 1997 coastal construction control line, which is a blue line. So that's provided for the entirety of Riviera Beach's jurisdiction on Singer Island. From the closest point between those two lines is roughly 50 feet. The largest point is around 140 feet. The next item I'd like to describe was provided to us by Palm Beach County Department of Environmental Resources Management. What this does is indicate the different markers along Singer Island, beginning at R61 south to R72. The point of this illustration is to denote the 2003 vegetation line, which is shown in red. It also indicates the 2007 vegetation line, which is shown in blue, and there's an aqua line, which shows the 2013 vegetation line. So through this illustration, one can see that throughout Singer Island, there's been some fluxes of the vegetation line itself, accretion and erosion of sand and shoreline. So this is just for informational purposes for the board. Most of this activity as far as erosion has taken place north of the county beach park. If we wish to look into any specific marker a little closer, we do have this images available here tonight. Also tonight we've provided the zoning map for the city, so we can point out the individual zoning districts that we're going to be discussing. So it's difficult to see either way. However, hopefully there's enough hard copies around, so hopefully everyone can follow on the hard copy. The RM20 zoning district is shown as a pinkish color, and that's primarily the northeast portion of Singer Island. However, there's also areas, properties that are designated RM20 on the west side of the Intracoastal, and there's also a parcel along MLK that's zoned RM20. The next zoning district that will be discussed is the RMH20 zoning district, which is a dark brown color. That's located only on Singer Island. There's a few parcels within the southeast area of the city's jurisdiction on Singer Island. Finally, the RH zoning code, which is mixed in between that RMH zoning district, which is also located in the southeast corner of the city's jurisdiction on Singer Island. So if the board wishes, I can just briefly go through the staff report, touch on a few highlights, and then we can go into the ordinance itself. So this is a city-initiated code amendment process. As previously read into the record, this is proposing to amend Chapter 31, Article 5, which is district regulations, and the three divisions within that district are the RM20 zoning district, the RMH20 zoning district, and the RH zoning district. July 16, 2014 was when the City Council enacted a 6-month moratorium to allow staff to review these zoning regulations. Staff has spent that time looking at the vegetation regression throughout Singer Island. We've communicated with multiple sources, including Palm Beach County Environmental Resources Management. Also, just for the record, we do have a letter of support from the county in regards to moving the coastal construction setback line as far as development setbacks for zoning regulations from the 79 coastal construction control line to the 97 coastal construction control line. So on page 1 of 16, within the ordinance itself, which starts with section 3 at the top, the format of all this language, again, additions are shown with an underline. It will be blue color. Deletions will be shown with a red strike through. And the newest version will have highlighting, which appears yellow, and it will either be underlined or stricken through, depending if it's an addition or a deletion. So I guess prior to starting with this language review, is there any comments from the board at this point in time?
Members?
I just do have a question.
Ms. Davis.
Is this area considered a coastal high hazard area?
I believe that's a flood map designation, and I'm not as familiar with the specific designations as, let's say, the building official would be, but I do believe it is a high hazard area currently.
Okay, just to let you know, according to your our comprehensive plan, the city is supposed to discourage increased densities in the Category 1 hurricane evacuation areas as defined by the Division of Emergency Management, and I don't know if that's if there's a conflict there or not. So I thought I should bring that to your attention.
Yeah, what happens, and I think that's in reference to really the first edits proposed, our comprehensive plan was amended in 2010, and at that point in time, I don't believe it was amended. However, our comprehensive plan, the most recent version of it, shows a density at either 20 residential dwelling units per acre or 17 if the MIHA provision is not used. So what this is proposing is making sure that our zoning regulations are compatible with our comprehensive plan.
And this all involves safety too, correct? Is that right? Safety for the buildings and the future development of Singer Island residents.
I would say that
Riviera
safety
Beach residents.
is always a concern for multiple divisions and departments within the city, whether that's building code regulations. There's additional regulations that are required if development is east of the coastal construction control line. And then also there's specific fire codes that must be met by all the buildings.
But we really wouldn't be having this change were it not for the beach erosion and the danger of the building foundations, correct? Is that right?
I think that was a major talking point that has got us here tonight.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Canuti.
Yeah, but one question. On your staff analysis number E, at the end, we say that staff is recommending the use of the 1997 coastal construction control line as the coastal setback line for the building development in order to promote increased sustainability. However, the state defines the coastal construction line as a jurisdictional boundary, specifically says not a setback line. So are we trying to understand that?
I think it's two different entities referencing the same point. So even though that language doesn't say specifically it's a setback line, what we're looking to do is using that reference point for our own setback line.
So you're saying that we're adopting, in this ordinance, you want to adopt the 97 line as the Riviera Beach setback line?
That's correct.
Thank you. No other question?
Mr. Colton.
What happens to the existing residents if they're beyond this new setback line?
Well, existing properties would be what we would call legal non-conforming. So that way they could exist in perpetuity, they could do repairs, as long as there wasn't a catastrophic or substantial loss being over 50% of the value of the property.
Is that it? Any other members wishing to comment? Are you done with your presentation?
Well, I can go through the language line by line if the board wishes. It's up to whatever your purview really is.
Well, I'm not sure that would probably be prudent, being that it's all new language. Well, I won't say new language. There's been some edits and amendments since we first seen it, so I would like to see that we can allow for more time for members of the public as well to take a stab at it. But to go through it line by line, that's my position. Members, Ms. Jackson.
It's not necessary for me.
I agree, Mr. McCoy.
Yeah, I agree with you also. I'd make the suggestion that at this point, the members of the public, I assume, have seen most of the stuff we've seen. So maybe we listen to the public and see what they have to say, and then revisit it with staff.
Mr. Gagnon, so aside from the line by line, is there any more to your presentation?
Well, I feel as if there may be a benefit in going through, maybe not line by line, but more thoroughly in case there's any other questions that may come up. But again, if the board's purview is to take public comments, maybe that will generate additional questions on the language that we can discuss.
Okay, and that's fine. Well, we'll skip over to public comments, and in no order or any fashion whatsoever. Julie Botel, and I apologize if I don't pronounce it. Botel.
Thank you. Just stay here and you won't hear me. Good evening. My name is Dr. Julie Botel. I live in Unit 21B of the Tiara condominium. I've lived here for 14 years now. And my husband and I love living on Singer Island, and we hope to continue to live there for many years. I know you're well aware that the city of Riviera Beach has historically experienced coastal erosion and sand loss on northern portions of Singer Island due to natural tidal processes and storm events. And that the city and the county have spent quite a bit of money on sand nourishment projects. The Riviera Beach City Council and Office of Community Development should work diligently to protect our natural environment from improperly sited and designed structures, which can jeopardize the stability of the beach dune system and accelerate erosion. The Coastal Construction Control Line Program is an essential element of Florida's coastal management program. It provides protection for Florida's beaches and dunes while assuring reasonable use of private property. Tiara residents are pleased, very pleased, that your staff is recommending that the City of Riviera Beach amend property development standards in relation to coastal erosion. We are gratified that the Planning and Zoning Board staff is recommending the use of the 1997 Coastal Construction Control Line as the control setback line for building development in order to promote increasingly sustainable development designs on Singer Island. We thank you for your efforts to preserve our beaches. Thanks.
Thank you. Ann Reedy.
Good evening. I'm Ann Reddy. I too am a Riviera Beach resident at 3000 North Ocean Drive. So I have 3 points tonight. Number one, I do agree as well with changing the coastal construction line to the 1997 lines. I think it's high time that we do that, and that's a good thing. I also would like to say that we believe the new line should apply to all development projects, including any exempted from the moratorium if the design of that project has changed substantially or has changed at all from when the original permits were approved. Second point, it looks like you are recommending increasing density in 3 ways. Increasing the maximum lot coverage size, increasing or changing the calculation of total site size to increase the percentage of the area east of the coastal construction line that is taken into account, and also increasing the maximum residential dwelling units per acre. So those 3 things together say to me we could have substantial increases in density for new projects. And for reasons of resident safety, as Ms. Davis mentioned during evacuation in particular, and also in terms of coastal protection, because of greater beach usage and development, I would recommend that we not increase allowable density, particularly to that degree. And then finally, it looks like something was added in fairly recently about allowing structures potentially east of the coastal construction line, the non-residential structures, and I would just like that available. I think that should be available for greater consideration before a decision is made tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Ward.
Good evening. Gerald Ward, 3930 North Ocean. I'm a deeded riparian and littoral property owner at that location, and I also have an undivided interest in 4 feet of an access way for Palm Beach Isles to the south of the 3800, the Marriott Resort. Obviously, somebody in the city wants more lawsuits. I have provided each of you with a copy of a very simple handout from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Beaches folks, which clearly was referenced by one of your members earlier, Mr. Canuti, that you cannot use a 161.053 coastal construction control line for the purposes that you're doing here. It is amazing to me that you were given a very simple page and less than a quarter write-up when all of this was thoroughly vetted after the adoption of that most recent control line by the state of Florida. And these same issues were almost litigated at that time with the council then. The control line is a line of jurisdiction so that you have established design standards to the waterward of it, and evaluation of the forces of the sea. I know people have said repetitively tonight, coastal erosion and so forth. Riviera Beach is a very stable area. North of the furthest most east point, it is a rocky coast with a thin lens of sand. Southward, we have had the advantage of the inlet district jetties, which extend beginning by charter in 1915, construction 1919, and that has created Palm Beach shores with an extensive beach and the fallout to the north of Riviera Beach, including even immediately south of the furthest most east headland in the state of Florida. There is a problem. The condo commandos have decided that sea grapes and beach vegetation is not their favorite tool. Corniche is a great example of just leveling. Just last year, Martinique came in and cut their sea grape to 6 feet. No good reason. Are we at a time? Or is it over? It didn't run at all.
Yeah, that was just 3 minutes.
The clock's not working. Well, I unfortunately have been watching the clock. There is no reason for you to do anything tonight but defer, ask the staff to bring back the history of how this city has done this in full. If you do not do it and it proceeds ahead, there will be certainly litigation because the state law does not contemplate use of this line in the manner you do. And further, you will see various litigation that many lawyers would sue you personally because the type of litigation is on zoning. So Burt Harris Act is the statute that I'm referring to that would grant
Mr. Ward,
each of you.
I've been very gracious.
Thank you.
Thanks. Last name is Divson. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing wrong. Go for it, Ms. Davis.
J.D.
I'm sorry.
Dixon.
My name is J.D. Dixon. I live at 3000 North Ocean Drive. I am very upset at a lot of things that are going on in terms of the setback, particularly the excusing one property, which is right next to the property in which I reside, by the council. And I believe that that was an improper act because when the original plan was filed, which was, I believe, in 2004, that plan has been changed. Therefore, they were not approved prior to prior to the exemption that was granted to them. We have had a great deal of difficulty going back to when the city created a resort district. And now there are residential buildings surrounded by so-called resorts. We have had an enormous amount of problems with the Marriott in terms of loudspeakers going from 8 in the morning till 11 at night, which is allowed in the, quote, resort area. But before there were resorts on Singer Island, there were residences. And I'm one of those residents, living in a residence. And I would like you to check into that to see whether or not the Tiara, the building I live into, was ever properly noticed about the plans for the AMRIT next door, because I believe we were not. And I would like to see, whatever notice. You remember in 2004, of course, there were hurricanes, and therefore we were not, we were destroyed. We were, however, getting our mail, and we can find nothing at this point to show that we were given notice in 2004 or in 2006 when those plans were amended. And if somebody changes their plans, then I believe that all bets are off and that property should observe the coastal setbacks, which I hope you are going to approve tonight. I think we owe it for the beaches, certainly for the $8.5 million that Riviera Beach has had to invest in sand renourishment, and the turtles, who the way those plans are now, they're right on top of turtle nesting areas. They shade everything. The whole thing needs looking at. I am not as professional as the other people who have spoken to you tonight, but those are my concerns. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Joel McGee.
Hi, my name is Joel McGee, and I'm the property owner in the city, and I'm also the president of Harbor Point Association. The association has 37 unit owners are in the process of selling the property to a developer who intends to redevelop it as a residential condominium. If the sale does not go through for any reason, then the association and its unit owners are going to be saddled with these new development regulations that are going to reduce the developable density of Harbor Point, which inordinately burdens our property. I'm here to preserve the property rights of the association and its 37 unit owners, and we object to any changes that take away from our property rights. We ask you to vote to recommend disapproval of them to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne Richards.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, staff, members of the public. My name is Wayne Richards, and I'm here on behalf of 3730 Marisol. This property owner has no objection to the verbiage as currently presented to you. Thank you.
Kari Podesta. Any other member of the public choosing to speak on this item, please fill out a public comment card at this time.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Podesta. I'm here as the attorney for Harbor Point Association. You heard from the association president, Joel McGee, and a unit owner. I would just concur in, obviously, the testimony given by my client regarding the impacts on the development rights and property rights of the owners at Harbor Point. I'd also like to state for the record that there were some last-minute changes made to the ordinance that we haven't had a chance to review, and I'm not sure if any of them affect the need to adjust the title of the ordinance, and so I ask you to speak with your attorney and make sure that you don't have to re-advertise this ordinance, because if in fact the ordinance title has changed and I haven't seen it, that's going to be an issue for you going forward. So I think there's a lot of comments already raised that raise concerns for my client. Obviously, those are the primary issue, but again, there's been some changes to the ordinance that we have not had the chance to review, and I ask you to defer the matter at a minimum so that we have that opportunity, and for you also to talk to your legal counsel to make sure that you're not doing something that's going to cause the ordinance to be held invalid for due process reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria Ellis.
Good evening. I'm also here to support the residents of the Tiara. And our concern is, in fact, to be able to follow due process, and also what consideration has been given to how the market is going to be affected for the current residents in that area.
Miss Maria, if you could just speak into the microphone and state your address.
My name is Maria Ellis, and I'm at the Tiara, 3000
Okay.
Ocean Boulevard. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That appears to be all of the public comment cards. Is there any, I don't want to say rebuttal, but is there anything that staff has to offer, at least as it relates to some of those comments that were made? If not, we can certainly move on to public comments. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but there was certainly something I heard about the exemptions of the existing property, well, of the property that was exempted. And I know I've heard some discussion about it. Do you have enough information to share with us?
Yeah, I can provide information on that. If there's specific questions that the board would like me to answer, I'd rather do that format than try to go down a bullet point list just in case I missed one or two items. I don't want anyone to feel as if I skipped over their question. So if the board has specific questions such as the exemption, I'll be happy to answer that.
Okay.
I believe what was referenced is within the 6-month moratorium that was passed previously by City Council that was discussed earlier in the meeting tonight, there was an exemption for 3100 North Ocean Drive, and that property was previously referred to as the Amoret, and they have made an application, I believe it was in April of this year, prior to the moratorium going to City Council. They applied for a new site plan development for that parcel. So the City Council decided at that time to exempt them from the moratorium and from these development regulations, however they may pan out.
There was some discussion about now that they've been granted, I guess, right through this site plan, any changes or modifications to the proposed site plan, at what threshold or what level does it come back before council for reconsideration? I know I heard a monetary value. I think he said at least half of the property or something like that. And then I've heard discussions.
I'm sorry, this is reference to the Amoret property, 3100 still?
Yes.
For that property, the site plan is still in a staff review phase. Historically, I believe in 2004, there was a site plan approved for that property. However, at this time, the developer is looking to go an alternate route and get a different site plan approved for that property. So being that it's in the process already, it would go through the staff review phase. And again, it's still early in the staff review phase where staff comments still have to be satisfied. At that point, it would come to the Planning and Zoning Board, and then it would go to City Council for final review and approval.
Ms. Davis?
I probably won't articulate this very well because I'm unclear about a couple things. So the Amoret submitted a proposal that was approved or not approved in 2004 or 2006 or whenever.
There was a site plan approved in 2004.
Okay, and now they want to do a totally new development or a different development?
Staff received an application in April of 2014 for a new development for that property.
And does it have the same footprint as the old development for density?
I would say it does not have an identical footprint.
And is it more or less?
More or less.
Density-wise?
I believe as proposed, it's less dense as what was approved in 2004. However, that's still a draft plan. It's still in the staff review phase, so it's really yet to be determined.
Was there some particular reason that it was exempted? Is it because, have they been working on it for all these years?
Well, It's difficult for me to answer that question, but I think that the developer had spent money on new plans, had done their due diligence, had been working on a new submittal, had officially submitted it to the city, and afterwards the city had proposed this moratorium. So I think it was, this is my personal opinion, but I think out of good faith, being that they're already within the process, that the council decided to exempt them from the moratorium.
Okay, thank you.
A follow-up, Jeff, are we talking site plan or are we talking permit? Because I've heard both of them used, and I'm starting to not understand, because if I'm hearing you correctly, you said 2004 there was an initial site plan application?
For 3100 North Ocean Drive, there was a site plan approved in 2004.
So the condition that we, at least I've seen most recently, where we impose that, construction begin or construction occurs within the 18 months of approval, was that not applicable?
Staff has previously throughout the years made the determination that the criteria within the conditions had been met by the developer. So it's still considered an active site plan.
For 10 years?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Go right ahead.
No. Sorry, excuse me. No, Mr. Chairman.
Well, fast forward to April. I suppose there are significant changes, is why they have to go back through the site plan application again. And I guess my initial question was, what triggers that? Is there a threshold dollar amount? I heard the word footprint. I don't even know what footprint means, since there's so many different variations. Like, what exactly required them to do a new submittal of a new site plan? Is it because they redevelop, or is it?
At this point, it's difficult for me to discuss that. It's kind of outside of tonight's agenda as well. So.
That's fair. Members, any other members choosing to comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of comments, general comments on the ordinance as you submitted it. Okay, we seem to be using different definitions in the area of density in the various RH zones. In some, we're using density as dry land, and in others, we don't mention dry land. So I think one thing we need to do is to tighten up the density definitions on this ordinance before it goes any further. Give you an example of that. And on page 2, we say dry land area and density shall be counted. And on page 13, we say 100% of the total area of the site. So that's a little confusing, I think, and interpretive. So I think that's one thing that we really need to tighten up. But more importantly, Mr. Chair, we were given a ordinance a week or so ago to digest and make comments on, and as we walked into the meeting, we got a second version 2, which nobody on the dais, I don't believe, has seen until we sat down here. So, without making a motion at this time, my feeling is that until we can, and just quickly, one or two of these items are substantial changes to the one that was given to us a week or so ago. So my feeling is that we cannot do anything with this ordinance other than give them comments as to what we think we need changed until we can digest all this and see what impact version 2 has, and hopefully no version 3 shows up at the last minute, until we understand what version 2 is doing for us. So, another comment.
Any other members? Any other members choosing to comment? Anything additional? Jeff? I'm sorry, Mr. Gagnon, excuse me.
Not at this time.
Hearing none. Members? Is it a consensus that we have this item tabled?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we table this item until we can have whatever comments made so far today incorporated into it and digest version 2 and then bring it back.
This is a point of order. If the item's tabled,
Postpone.
that's what I was
No
heading
problem.
towards.
Okay, correct.
If it's tabled, then it would have to be officially brought up again through motion. So my suggestion would be to bring it back for discussion at our next planning and zoning board meeting, which is, I believe, December 11th.
Let the motion reflect that this ordinance be brought back with comments at the December 11th meeting. Is that adequate for? Okay.
Second.
It's been moved in second, and prior to us taking a vote, Joe Ward, you acknowledge for comment.
Are we on to public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, I'm sorry. It's been moved in second. Mr. Velasquez.
Arthur Hamilton,
Yes.
Kimberly Jackson,
Yes.
Brian Colton,
Yes.
Marie Davis,
Yes.
Edward Kennedy,
Yes.
Frederick McCoy.
Yes.
Unanimous voting, motion approved.
And I apologize. I looked at the comment card and it said non-conforming definition, so I just assumed that it was for this item, which puts us at public comments. And any individual from the public choosing to speak on any item, you're recognized. Oh, I'm sorry, you're not recognized. Please fill out a comment card in the back. Mr. Ward.
Joe Ward, 2135 Broadway and 3930 North Ocean, Riviera Beach, both sides. It's difficult without having the clock working and all of a sudden find out that you don't have any time left. Number one, you have not been given, but you should be given a proffered permit that the Department of Army offered on the 7th of the month to the Florida Inland Navigation District for dredging of the Intracoastal Waterway as far north as the 17th Street area of Riviera Beach from the Turning Basin extension of the Lake Worth Inlet project. It's very important. It is not an issued permit, and there are conditions that need to be reviewed by lots of people, and it's certainly something that the staff should have given to the planning board. The second item is that Monday, the FEMA noticed the 90-day period for appeal of flood insurance elevations that they have done. No different than this ordinance, as staff, by board comment, drew out of them, making most all of the properties, if not all of the properties north of, and buildings north of the furthest most east point in the state, non-conforming. That same proposed mapping will make the same buildings non-conforming through the federal flood insurance system and cause extensive expenses to those condos north. It seems to me that you need to order staff to come back then at a future date and time, possibly the next meeting, and define what non-conforming means. So the city doesn't surprise all of these folks that they have excessive cost in order to get a building permit, do things, and check out all of the provisions if there is a variance opportunity, because one of the things is that what they propose doesn't allow change in density effectively. It's a very curiously worded paragraph of the city code. I would also tell you that the Palm Beach County ERM filed on the 27th of October an application to try and extend their crazy beach dune fill project further south. This is an area that is absolutely, we have a final order saying there is no erosion potential in these Martinique to north of the Ocean Park area. So it's going to be fruitless for them to do it. And I think that's, I guess, my time. I don't know what, we need to explain how we're working this someday.
Julie Botel.
Thank you. I just wanted to introduce some of my colleagues from the Tiara. If you would stand up if you're a Tiara resident, please. So we're here with one voice tonight. Thank you. Ann Reddy, myself, and Kara Podesta, who seems to have left, who also represents us, as a matter of fact, met today with Mr. Did you get it right? Thank you. And we had a lovely meeting. We had a wonderful meeting with his attorney and the spa person there who promised that we would all have great massages and sea wraps and all kinds of things. It was wonderful, lovely. They plan to build a beautiful facility, but they plan to build it right up to the 1979 line. And they have a right to do that apparently because of what City Council did, because of what City Council exempted them from. We strongly encourage you to adopt the 1997, call it coastal construction control line or setback line, whatever you want to call it, but we encourage you to adopt that line and to also please see what can be done about asking politely our neighbors to the north to abide by that 1997 line and not the 79 line. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public choosing to comment? Now would have been the time. We're going to move forward to correspondence.
Once again, Jeff Gagnon, Planning Zone Administrator. The only correspondence was previously noted. That was the November 7th letter to the city from Palm Beach County Environmental Resources Management.
Thank you, Jeff. Members, Planning and Zoning Board member comments.
Yes, I have comments.
Ms. Davis.
I have a lot of questions, but I don't want, since this matter is being deferred to next month, is there an objection if I put my questions in writing and then just make it email each one of the board members when I email it to you?
Probably not.
I'm concerned with Florida sunshine laws as far as communication on an item. If it was something that you wanted to email to me, I could distribute it and attach it as part of our next board packet. Or
That's fine.
Okay.
If it's practical, you can certainly answer it now.
I have about 20 questions here.
Oh, you have 20?
Only because I don't understand some of these, some of the definitions and whether some of these items are actually more or less restrictive. So those are some of my questions, but I have them, they're by paragraph, so I don't want to waste everyone's time this evening. Thank you.
Well, Ms. Davis, would it help if he provided a more detailed presentation or some additional background details regarding the coastal setback? I mean, because I'm really interested in, hearing some of your concerns, but I would like to hear them, where we can all chime in on them. But
well, I feel like this is rather vague, and it's such an important. This is such an important decision because it impacts the future of Riviera Beach / Singer Island, and I think it's important to keep Singer Island I happen to live there, as pristine as possible, because if if it's not perfect or as near perfect and safe as possible for future residents and builders and developers, it will impact the entire tax base for Riviera Beach, since we pay about 45% of the taxes. And that's fine, but I think it's important that we retain as much of a residential quality as possible. And it appears, that's why I have the questions, it appears that these new ordinances, or this new ordinance, is much more liberal in setbacks and that sort of thing. And that's my concern. And I know there has to be a balance between private property rights and the rights of, the city and the rest of us, but I think that I just don't understand some of this, and I think it needs further explanation. I don't know why DNR, Department of Natural Resources, have been taken out of some of these decisions. Things like that. I mean, we want them to be there. I'm concerned about the Lake Worth Lagoon. I mean, I know left, right, east, west, north, and south, but you rattle this off so quickly, I'm not sure where the vegetation line in one area is and where something else is.
Well, if I may, sorry for interrupting.
Sure. No, please.
I think at this point, you've indirectly asked a few questions by just discussing your mindset. So if it's something that, we're all here, and this is the proper forum to discuss questions. So if you have specific questions, then...
Sure. I'd like to...
Well,
I'm sorry,
if you can just read them into the record, and if it's something that he can address, you know what? If you can just read them into the record,
sure,
that'd be perfect. And before you start, Jeff, can we, as soon as possible, following the meeting, have our the audio recording available to us? I know it may take some time for the minutes to be transcribed.
We can post the audio tomorrow.
Okay, that'll be great. And go ahead, Ms. Davis, with your questions.
Well, one of the things I think is real important is that we should have someone here from the county, like Mr. Bates or someone, to discuss this. I mean, we always sort of defer to you and beat you up as much as we can. And I think that we, in the best interest, what we feel is the best interest of the residents. And I think that there should be someone else here, either Mary McKinney or someone from the county level or the state level, to explain some of these things to us. And it's not meant to be a poor reflection on you, because it certainly isn't. I know under background D, you refer to, there's a lot of money that Riviera Beach spends that's allocated to the beach renourishment. Well, a lot of money is a lot to some, and maybe is it multi-million dollars? Is it, how much is it? It's under item D, under background. Under the RM20.
Make sure you speak in the microphone.
Under RM20, section 31-241, the purpose, multifamily, it's ... multifamily dwellings, and allows a high density of population with an increase in amenities as the density rises. And the reason I'm concerned about that is because of either the flood zone or the coastal, whatever it was I said in the very beginning with regard to the danger from hurricanes, whatever that
hazard.
Yes. The development of the coastal high hazard area, where the policy 2.2.2 says the city is to discourage increased densities in Category 1 hurricane evacuation areas as defined by the Division of Emergency Management. That's sort of a concern, because I don't know what the Division of Emergency Management, what the arrangement is. Under section 31-243, under the development standards, under single-family dwellings of 8,000 square feet, you've increased residential dwellings from 17 to 20 feet per acre, and then 13 to 17 units per acre. I don't know what the bonus density, I don't understand what that is. The bonus density shall be established in Chapter 26. That means it's not established yet, and if we're going to establish an ordinance, I don't understand why we wouldn't do it all at the same time. And that's regarding entitled minority development and affordable housing opportunity plan. I don't understand density transfers. Underneath that, under A, total land area on Singer Island from the westernmost property line, and then in the third sentence, you've taken out, let's see, let me read it all. The total land area on Singer Island from the westernmost property line east of the right-of-way of State Road 703 A1A to the 1997 coastal construction setback line is established by the state of Florida Department of Natural Resources, and you've taken out Department of Natural Resources, and it seems that they would be real important to that particular area of Singer Island that's right next to that environmentally sensitive Lake Worth Lagoon. So I don't know why that was taken out. And I don't know, under B, the total land area of the east of the 1997 coastal construction line to the vegetation you've taken out the vegetation and added mean high water line, or the easternmost property line, whichever is less. Is that more restrictive to the developer or to a resident, or more? I don't, less or more, and I don't know what that means. Under item 4, under density, this would be page 3. Item number 4, you refer to the property located, and it stops. It doesn't say there's an address. It doesn't. The sentence isn't finished. And then under accessory uses, the parking garages and recreational decks, generator rooms, etc. for properties on Lake Worth, the front yard shall be 30 feet. That's removed, so what is it now? It's not replaced by anything. The regulation does not apply to ornamental walls, gatehouses, to which the setback, which was 5 feet, is now 15 feet from the front property line. Again, down in number D, under ocean, I don't know why that entire line has been eliminated. What is it now? It says coastal. It refers to the 1997 coastal construction line. And then what's been removed is coastal construction setback line, or 25 feet from the, it doesn't say east or west, I don't know what it is, it's misspelled, of the dune, whichever is greater. So what is it now? And why is it eliminated? I know these are really basic questions, and they're easy for you, but it's not our job. We're residents who volunteer, and we can't always digest all these technical issues. Under parking, 31-244, item number D, the maximum height of the parking garage shall be 60 feet. Well, what is it now? It doesn't say what it is. Also, under use regulations 31-262, the uses that are permitted under item 5, restaurants and shops accessory to hotels and motels. The following areas are permitted in our MH20 high-density multifamily hotel district: restaurants and shops accessory to hotels or motels. And then what you've taken out is which uses shall not have signs or displays visible from the public street. So does that mean that now the restaurants can have huge, large signs? And is there any type of ordinance that says restaurant signs and hotel signs have to be a certain size and height, consistent with others on the same street? Also, on Singer Island, there's another permitted use, and that's a mobile home park. And I personally oppose that. Not that I mind the mobile home parks, but I think if you wanted to maintain a certain quality of an area where you expect people to come, and that's your tax base, you have to keep it pristine. And Not that it wouldn't be pristine, I just don't think that, it's my personal opinion, that it's a good place for that. And then under minimum property size, maximum density, under B, multi-dwelling, there's a lot there, and I would like that to be explained. Under 3A, again, DNR, Department of Natural Resources, has been eliminated, so whose responsibility is it? It just says state of Florida. Well, that could be anyone. It doesn't refer to a department. Also, under item C that's been removed, total land area east of the vegetation line and the mean high water line shall be computed at 25% of the total land area between 2 points. What was it before, and what does it mean? On the next item is number 4, maximum building height, 20 stories or 200 feet, excluding mechanical facilities, ornamental towers, and antennas, which shall not exceed, it was 10 feet, and now they expanded it to 20 feet. Such non-habitable building elements shall be screened and set back from the roof line in such a way as to avoid increasing the building's off-site ground level shadow. Under minimum building setbacks, unless I'm reading this incorrectly, under item number 3, front, the accessory structures, parking garages, recreational decks, and boiler generator rooms, 50 feet. Then what's been removed for properties on Lake Worth, the front yard setback shall be 30 feet. Well, was it 50 feet before, or what was it before? And then under D, ocean, colon, the 1997 coastal construction line, control line, it just stops, and what's been removed is coastal construction setback line or 25 feet from the crest of the dune, whichever is greater. That's been removed. It just sort of stops. The lot coverage on item 7 went from 60 to 70%. And I don't understand. And then under 31.264 parking, C, bonus. I don't understand the bonus. And also, on another, I'm not sure this is under landscape in 31.531, item number 3, where the dune has been destroyed or depleted of landscaping in a manner that does not afford a natural protection from the elements, the dune shall be rebuilt and replenished with native landscaping vegetation to provide the necessary protection and to reestablish the dune ecosystem. Whose responsibility is that? Who determines where that location is? Is it the city? Is it the county? Is it the Department of Natural Resources? I mean, who decides that? Or is it the owner? So if the owner takes out items, does that mean that he can create his own natural dune? I mean, who determines that? And I just think that, Singer Island has a lot of environmentally sensitive property, and we have to take care of it. And that's all I have to say. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to ask those same questions, Ms. Davis. No, I wasn't really, but you were very.
I feel like I'm here alone.
No, you were very thorough, and I certainly appreciate that. I have a question, Jeff. Our next meeting, I believe you said, was the 11th. That's the second Tuesday in December, unless we want to come for Thanksgiving. No, not really. But
what did we talk about?
Our next meeting will be on December 11th, which is Thursday.
okay, do we? And I know it may be tough for you to kind of tell us, but do you imagine that we'll have other items that we'll be discussing on that date?
I don't know at this time. It's possible, but I'm not sure at this time.
Okay. I've heard it mentioned before about the minutes, and I've actually asked and we inquired about it. And I would like to see if we can kind of ask at least the city council or maybe even the city manager's office if they would consider having the meeting minutes transcribed by a court reporter or whatever medium that they use for the city council and the CRA meetings, because you guys do a great job. I just would like to see it a lot sooner, you know, as compared to if we don't come back for another month, then we'll see the meeting minutes, you know, a month later. You know, I would like to see it when it's at least fresh in our heads. And sometimes when I try to go back through and look at or try to hear some of the audio recordings, when you go on the YouTube, it's like, if you ever tried it, you got to kind of gauge where we were in the process when that item was discussed. So you have to sit there and listen through the whole entire recording, and it helps, but it could be a lot better for all of us, especially since we're taking action and we're deliberating on the items. I want to make sure that I have a good understanding of what was discussed and that sort of thing. So if any of my colleagues would like to make a motion that we have or city managers to consider having our meetings transcribed by a court reporter or whatever means, that'd be great.
Question.
Mr. Hamilton?
If court reporter, how would costs be absorbed?
Well, I would kind of defer that to the city manager's office, but the same method in which they use to have the meeting minutes for the CRA meeting and the workshops and the city council meetings, I would imagine this shouldn't be that much more of a incremental cost. I would hope, and especially since we're already in the budget year and the budget hasn't been voted on, so I would leave that to them to decide. But you know, it's certainly, I don't believe it will be nothing additional that will increase the millage rate if that's something that you're concerned with. But you know, I think that's beyond us. But I would like to see if we can make that ask of the city manager. In fact, you know, let's just go right to city council. I mean, it doesn't even matter to me. It's just tough to try to go through some of these items when you don't, you know, it can be a lot smoother to work through it. So, Mr. Hamilton, is that it?
Thank you for that response.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to ask a question about
Okay. Okay. No motion? Your acknowledgement.
I'll make a motion.
I think that's a great idea. I'll make a motion that we either we first request our city manager to permit us to have all of our meetings recorded via court reporter. And secondly, if that doesn't work, then I'll make a motion that we apply to the city council directly. Thank you.
Ms. Davis, I'm sorry, but I'm not sure if they use a court reporter, but I know they have I don't know if they listen to the audio recordings and then they transcribe from there, but I'm not sure if a court reporter is actually at every single meeting. I don't think there is, but whatever medium that they choose. So I don't want to.
That's fine. I'll amend my motion to that.
Okay.
Point of order. Are you going to give the city manager an opportunity to respond prior to requesting that the council becomes involved in the matter?
Yes.
So the motion is to the city, for staff to request on behalf of the board that the city manager provides a transcriber or a court reporter for the P&Z board meeting minutes.
Whatever they use for the city council meeting minutes, whoever they use or whatever their medium is.
I'm just making sure that the motion, it seemed two-parted. So just the first part to allow the manager the opportunity to address the board's request. And then upon, should that not be favorable to the board, then the board may then move to request that the council considers the matter.
Yes, ma'am. And I'd like to add a timeline, perhaps by the next meeting. We can have either a letter or an answer. Can I incorporate that into my motion?
If I may, as a point of order, historically when the board's made similar motions, staff has, I guess, made the request to have the item come from the board itself. Again, the motion can be whatever the board desires. However, I don't know if the motion is clear on who was to do what actions in order to accomplish that goal.
Okay, I'll make a motion that that you request. It has to go through you, I presume. Is that right, Jeff? Does this have to go directly through you?
The motion can be general enough just to say staff can present.
I'll make a motion.
Questions to the city manager.
All right, I make a motion that staff request, on our behalf, request the city manager to permit us to have our meetings recorded in the same manner the city council has their meetings recorded.
For what purpose, Ms. Davis? Let's make sure we're clear, because we don't want video recording. We know that's pretty much that's a long stretch, if not impossible. But for the purpose of transcribing the minutes, so make sure that's specific, so there's no ambiguity when it gets to wherever it's going. That is for the purposes of transcribing the meeting minutes.
For the purposes of transcribing the meeting minutes.
Is that legally sufficient, Mr. Stubbs?
Yes, so just for clarification, the board is making, the motion is for staff to request on behalf of the board to the city manager that the meeting minutes for the Planning and Zoning Board be transcribed
in the same manner.
Well, in the same manner as the clerk's office does. So it transcribes written meeting minutes for the Planning and Zoning Board.
Well, we don't know if the clerk's office transcribes it.
Well, the point that I'm making is that I know the clerk's office provides written meeting minutes to be approved by the city council on their agenda. So I'm just making the distinction that Mr. McCoy made regarding that. It's written meeting minutes as opposed to the request being televised or something of that sort.
Mr. Chair.
You know what? Before you comment, and you're certainly welcome to comment, but can we have our city manager, perhaps, since she's I think the code references her as a quasi-judicial or she's a member of the board, because this is going to be a problem, I can tell you that now, because it's going to go back and it may seem as if we're asking for a staff of the clerk's office to come here, and that's not what I want. I'm sure that won't happen because we can't even get a recording done. So can we invite our city manager to our next meeting and we just ask her outright, or maybe even a designate from her office? That way it's very clear, because I wrote a letter before, maybe a year and a half ago, and I'm afraid that didn't help the request. But it's all of this bureaucracy about the way we name it or the way we do this. I would love to see her come in and we can address some of these concerns, not just about the meeting minutes, but some of the other things about the whole process and how we communicate with council. Well, maybe we need to reevaluate how the Planning and Zoning Board is even our rights and responsibilities. When we make a motion, what's the process? Where does it go from there? Because, here it is. I've seen this movie before. It's back and forth. Well, we need to make it to staff. And nothing against staff. I think you guys do a great job. Or we should probably send it to this person. Or maybe the chair should write a letter. At this point, I would like to see if she can come down to our meeting and we can just get rid of, these extra steps and say, city manager, she at some point seen our application or was involved in us being appointed to this board in some, maybe indirectly, but, at least I think, we should have someone from the city manager's office to say, hey, so there's no ambiguity, because I don't know how they do the minutes over there at the city clerk's office. The CRA does the same minutes. Does the city clerk's office provide that service to them? So I don't want to limit it and say the city clerk's office, and I don't want to make it seem as if we're requesting to have a staff person. So it always works if you're dealing directly with the person that you need to speak to and just have them to come in.
If I may, Chairperson, to not murky the request, I think that I personally understand what the goal of the board is, and please clarify if I'm incorrect, but the ultimate goal of having the minutes done by an outside entity or whatever the process is for the city council, let's say, is to have the planning and zoning board have two things happen: have the minutes in a more timely manner and have a more complete version of the minutes. Is that what I've heard correctly?
I would like to see that. Is that what your intentions are, Ms. Davis, with the motion?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so as staff, I understand that's what the intent is. I don't want to say this happens all the time, but if I recollect correctly, there was some sort of backlog with meeting minutes at a previous city council meeting, so even requesting that procedure that might be established may not be the quickest way to accomplish that. So how about we revisit it as staff and see if we can come up with something that might be able to satisfy both of those comments. And I guess to comment on the second part of the discussion in regards to the city manager, there's definitely a lot of things on the city manager's plate. If an official letter isn't something that the board wishes to do, then staff can communicate with her. There's always an opportunity at every city council meeting if discussion points need to be made. She's at every city council meeting. So the invitation could be presented to her. However, it might be difficult.
Okay. It certainly might be difficult to get out what you want to get out in 3 minutes before they sit you down at a city council meeting. It's equally as difficult to send an email and not get a response, or even put a letter in the United States mail and not get a response. So either way you look at it, it's going to be you still have to deal with some obstacles, but
I think
it just seems
as
fruitless.
A general response, no matter what method of moving forward, there'll be obstacles one way or the other.
Right, but
I'm not saying they won't be something that can't be overcome. However, there's just a process that needs to occur.
Okay, well.
Since it was my motion, no. We want to follow up on this. We would like you to follow up on it. We'd like to have an answer by the next meeting. I made a motion, and I'd like the city manager to address this. According to the planning and zoning rules and regulations and the Florida statutes, we're supposed to be a very important part of the budget. And we don't have a budget item. And if you refer to what our responsibilities really are, we have actually abdicated some of those responsibilities to you and to community development. And you were really helpful, and we appreciate that. But each time we ask for something, we usually don't get it. It's no different than the land use regulation inconsistencies. We're sort of back there. So my motion stands, and we'll just continue to follow up either through Ms. Jones, or we'll be going to the city. I will be going to the city council, and I would urge each one of you to do the same thing, because we don't represent them. We represent the residents of Riviera Beach. And the city council put enough trust in us to place us here. And I think that we
need to fulfill our obligations and do what's in the best interest of the residents and not be stymied by certain members, excluding you, Jeff, of the staff or city council people.
It was moved by Ms. Davis. Mr. Canuti, did you have a comment?
Well, let's deal with the motion. But my only comment is that, we seem to be guessing on how things are done. Why don't we direct staff to tell us exactly how it's done, see if that's acceptable to us, and then have a motion to ask for that particular process, rather than a nebulous process that we're not sure of. So that would be my suggestion.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been moved and it's been a second.
Chair, can you repeat the motion, please?
Ms. Davis.
I make the motion that we make a request to the city manager that our meeting minutes be transcribed in the same manner that the city council minutes are transcribed in. Is that sufficient?
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any other comments? Did I hear some discussion? Hearing no other comments. Mr. Velasquez, if you can call the roll, please.
Arthur Hamilton,
Yes.
Kimberly Jackson,
Yes.
Brian Colton,
Yes.
Marie Davis,
Yes.
Edward Knuddy,
Yes.
Frederick McCoy,
Yes.
Daniel was voting, motion approved.
I have a question, Jeff. Excuse me, Mr. Gagnon. I see it was July 16th, I believe it was the moratorium. Being that we're extending out to December, will City Council have to renew or extend that moratorium? Because that is running pretty tight.
It's something that staff will look into.
Okay.
Chair. Ms. Davis asked some very specific questions, and I want to know how will the responses come back to the board? Are you going to send out an email, or are you going to have a detailed information, that's going to be mailed to us at some point? I personally would like to receive the information before the next meeting.
Historically, when similar things have occurred through discussion of proposed amendments to ordinances, what's been most effective, in my opinion, is to list everything out in a question and answer format. So that can be done, numbered in bullet points as far as each individual question. If staff can pick up on other questions that were asked throughout the meeting that go beyond just Ms. Davis's comments, then we'll include those as well in the comments, and we can include those in the next packet.
Chair.
Mr. Hamilton?
To piggyback on the questions that Ms. Davis and the chair said, he had the same questions. On page 2 and page 3, refers to Lake Worth. Ms. Davis referred to it as Lake Worth Lagoon. I know of the city of Lake Worth. I'm of the impression that it stands for Lake Worth Intercoastal. Can that be clarified in writing in the next presentation?
I believe, Mr. Hamilton, that was an existing section of the code. Is that correct?
Page 2 of 16 and page 3 of 16, 3E and 5F respectively, minimum, and probably other pages thereof.
Well, I guess If Mr. Gagnon, you can kind of.
Page 216, number 3E, and I'll read, no area of submerged land on Lake Worth shall be.
Yeah, I think your suggestion's a good one. That was existing language, but it might be proper for staff to go back and look to see how different areas are referred to in the code and see if there's a cleaner, more concise way of referring to it.
And if it has been defined before and shortened to that point, we need to be aware of it, just in case.
In December 11th, we'll be expected to take a vote on this ordinance.
Well, the item will be properly advertised, so if the board decides to make a motion to City Council, either for or against, or for with comments, it will be proper at that time as well.
What if we choose not to take it up? Or we choose not to make a, just as we did today, take up a vote?
Deferring it to another meeting or refusing to hear the
Or refusing to hear it?
I've never seen that happen, and you have to look into that. I think we probably just provided information.
Because I'm sure that would throw a huge, I'm sure that would really throw everything off
we
track.
just provided information to City Council.
And move forward.
Being that, well, if the board just chooses not to review language, that would be rather unusual. It almost seems as if the board wasn't willing to do the duties that they were nominated to do. So.
Wow. Okay.
If that situation were to happen, that would be my take on it, but I don't think that situation will happen.
Okay. Just curious. Any other members?
Yeah, just as a point of reference, most of the comments that we heard were based on version 1, which was sent to us a week or so ago. Okay, I don't think anyone here has had an opportunity to digest version 2 with some of the major changes. I think board members, my suggestion is to digest version 2 and submit those questions about version 2 to Mr. Gagnon and have that included in the response, because there are some significant changes.
Any other members? Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. At a previous meeting, we asked staff to look into, and the attorney can correct me because she did research on it. Basically, the availability for an absent member to be present remotely. At a later meeting, I asked for that be tested in the interim. I have not heard of any report on such. That way, certain individuals, if applicable, could be present in their physical absence. Is there any feedback on that?
Just to be clear, Mr. Hamilton, you're not referring to the research that was done. You're requesting whether or not your suggestion that it be tested be taken to staff or higher level staff, because the case law is pretty clear that unless exigent circumstances exist, that it's generally disfavored that a board member appear by electronic means, and the case law examples reference emergency situations, and still notwithstanding that, there was a full quorum available of that particular board to be able to hear and render the decision on the matter.
And if I recall, what you said, that case which occurred in Tampa set the precedents, and therefore I'm saying that we should at least test the availability of those meetings. So just in case, if it need to be in place and executed, it will be available.
So you're saying test the availability of electronic media this week?
For this particular P&Z group, yes.
That is a board initiative.
I would caution against it because there will come in the issues of parliamentary issues such as order. I mean, how do you maintain order if someone's on a telephone and we need to acknowledge someone else to speak? So, I mean, is that even something that we are advisory in nature, so none of these decisions are binding. So is it even something that we want to even go down that route? Anything further?
To respond to your comment, Chair.
Go ahead. You acknowledge.
I have heard, and unfortunately no members of the council is present, that council may do that at particular meetings.
Okay. Anything additional? Is there any action on that? Hearing none. Any other members choosing to comment?
I move to adjourn.
Just a moment for me.
Staff has one thing as well, please.
Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry, Mr. Gagnon.
If you had a comment prior to, I just have a final item for the board.
Okay. I was just going to acknowledge Ms. Stubbs, but if that's what you're going to do, you're welcome to do that.
What seems to be an appropriate time. Just wanted to let the board know that tonight will be Ms. Stubbs' final night as the attorney serving our board. Staff wants to thank her very much. She's done an excellent job the time she's been here. It seems like she got here yesterday, but it's probably been multiple years because that's just how things work out. We have a small token of our appreciation as well for her. So for the remaining people, I'd just like to
Mr. Chair, I just would like to take the opportunity to thank this board. I have been given an opportunity for professional advancement and a different type of employment, still the practice of law. And I just really want to thank the board and, of course, staff for everything. And I have enjoyed my time here at the city, and I appreciate everything. That is it for me. For staff, I'll thank them even further another time. I don't want them to give me a tearjerker.
Congratulations.
Thank you for your service.
Appreciate your guidance.
Also at this time, Mr. Brian Schutt will be filling in at our next meeting as our consulting city attorney. He's present tonight. I just wanted to introduce him to the board, match the name of the face, so he will be our acting attorney for next meeting.
Thank you. It's very nice, being here watching this, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
One final comment to touch on what Mr. Canuti said previously. It definitely is always helpful for staff to receive board comments prior to the meeting. I know that in this instance, the new revisions weren't provided in a timely manner. However, a bulk of the material was provided in advance, and staff didn't really receive much feedback. So it's definitely beneficial for us, and then that way we can provide, again, bullet point questions and answers, and sometimes it just helps further the discussion at the board meetings. That's it.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Davis, I would tell you that your comments are very appreciated.